At times, phase changes, when ice turns to water and turns to steam. Things happen suddenly, and you do not want that to happen because that is political, social disaster. We talked a lot in our team reports about what needs to be done, and we wrote separately for local governments. And here's an example of success stories. This is in Uganda, in Kampala, where they were about to cover up a wetland because they felt that its value as an agricultural land was better, until an economist worked out that the value of this wetland as a kind of waste disposal facility, basically a sewage facility for the city of Kampala, was actually 8 to 10 times higher than its value as a converted agricultural land. Then they changed their minds, thankfully, due to good economic thinking. Another example, the loss of the white stork in Japan was a big loss to the people because they felt for this animal. And they wanted it back, but to do that, they had to reintroduce organic farming, which they did in about 200 hectares. That's not very big. But thanks to that, not only has the white stork come back to the city of Toyooka, but also they are able to brand the rice that they grow there as white stork rice, which sells at a premium, so there's an economic value. And that premium is also even higher, up to 50%, if it is sold as organic and not just improved rice. And thanks to that, not only is there a catchment of new species, but there's biodiversity marketing going on, there's ecotourism going on. They make something like $10 million a year extra just because of this ecotourism. And their revenues have gone up 1.4%, which in Japan is not a small number. Another example of why it matters. And if we look at what is happening around the world in many aspects of certification, be it forest certification or fisheries certification, there are many, many companies and many, many markets where this is really moving at a very accelerated pace. Certified products and their sales are growing much, much faster than uncertified products. And this is a very interesting result for companies to look at. And you can see some of the companies who are involved in this. They are big names. We're talking about Mars, Cadbury, Kraft, Unilever. So these are not exactly fly-by-night or small-ticket companies. These are center-stage companies. So you see there are examples, economic rationale, both at the local government level and at the business level, why moving forward with recognizing the value of nature can actually help improve performance. Economic performance and the wealth of people both can improve. And the last point that I'll make as to why ending the economic invisibility of nature is important is because of the value it can generate for employment by rebuilding natural capital. I come from India, and one of the stories from there is an example of that, where the government of India 4 or 5 years ago introduced a scheme called the National Rural Employment Guarantee Act. The idea of that is to pay the minimum wage to farmers during the off-season when they're not cropping. And that simple amount of payment is hardly $2.50 a day. But to rebuild local ecology, which means replant forests, which means build dams to catch water, which means improve freshwater availability and soil fertility. Small things like that, which are manual labor intensive, have created 30 million jobs outside season. And that is a hugely important thing, not just because there is employment outside the cropping seasons, but because the quality of soil improves and the availability of freshwater improves and agricultural yields go up. And it is well known that if agricultural yields go up, that is the best solution to reducing poverty. An increase in 10% of yields sometimes leads to up to 5% reductions in poverty as measured by the World Bank, the norms. And that's in Southeast Asia. In Africa, it's up to 7%. A study was done which showed that agricultural yield improvements of up to 80% on average were found across 57 countries and 300 projects as a result of using ecologically friendly farming, less damaging to nature. Once again, a win-win situation. Recognize the economics, apply them, have better results both for society and for reducing poverty and for nature. I want to close by summarizing where we are today and describe to you what is happening in the TEEB project. I'm delighted that the government of India, the government of Brazil are both moving forward with implementing TEEB studies and analyses to be able to apply our strategies. The strategies of land use based on ecosystem service values, strategies of valuation for protected areas to see what value they provide, strategies such as eco-certification and so on. And many other countries, including Germany and Norway, have already announced their national studies. So in both developing as well as developed world, this is moving forward. And I'm also delighted that many of you here whom I've been speaking with are interested on the business applications of TEEB, because there is a TEEB business coalition that has been formed. So many of the demands that have come to TEEB as a result of our studies and our communication of these results have actually already generated further interest. And I'm very pleased that this interest is right here, and that I hope that people like yourselves, businesses such as yourselves, government people, representatives of civil society are all engaged and are able to take this forward. I hope also that there will be pilot projects right here on the green economy in Indonesia, where I believe there to be substantial opportunity. So, ladies and gentlemen, the economic invisibility of nature is a problem. Nature is not just a luxury for the rich, it is a necessity for the poor. It is the treasury of the poor. It is important that if you are serious about development, that you give that a thought and you build that thinking into your development model. Thanks very much indeed.
Thank you very much indeed, Pavan. Sometimes the best way of thinking about a problem afresh is to look at a problem in a different way. And to talk us through one aspect of that is Rebecca Moore, who is the engineering manager at Google Earth Outreach at Earth Engine, Google Inc. Rebecca.
Thanks very much. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's a privilege to be here today. My first visit in Indonesia, presenting a new technology initiative we have at Google we're very proud of, we're very committed to, called Google Earth Engine. We learned this morning there seems to be consensus that to address the global challenges of sustainability, new models are needed. At Google, we have a commitment to what we think is a new model of philanthropy, which is technology-driven philanthropy. Originally, Google.org gave grants, sort of traditional grants, but we were not achieving the impacts we were hoping. And we realized it was because we were not leveraging Google's core strengths. So now we are choosing a small number of projects which leverage Google's capabilities in information, our infrastructure, our engineering to address global challenges. And Google Earth Engine is a particularly good example of this, we think. How did we get involved with forest carbon monitoring, which is our first use case for Google Earth Engine? We were in the Brazilian Amazon teaching indigenous tribes how to use Google Earth to protect the rainforest and preserve their culture. And scientists came to us and said, you know, Google Earth is great and we use it for environmental projects, but what we really need is for Google to help us stop the deforestation of the Amazon. We're losing 1 million acres a year. It's happening in often remote parts of the forest. There's no law enforcement there. However, you can see in satellite imagery the changes that are happening, and one could create an alerting system that would monitor and report on areas of suspicious change. However, it requires terabytes or even petabytes of satellite imagery data to accomplish this, and it requires weeks to run this on a single computer. By the time you do this, the activities are over. And so they asked if we would consider, since we already had the imagery in Google Earth, would we make it available for analysis, not just visualization, but for analysis, for policy, and for reporting. So that was our challenge, and for reasons you know well, forest carbon monitoring is particularly timely and globally important. We have a concern of climate change mitigation and global poverty alleviation, and if you look at the scale of what it takes to build a red MRV system, we consider it a Google scale problem because of the scale of the data, the scale of the processing. And again, people came to us and asked for us to be involved, so we jumped in. So some of the challenges that exist today that you know very well, first of all, getting access to satellite imagery, airborne data, LiDAR data, radar data, it's huge amounts of information, and you have to do a tremendous amount of pre-processing of that data in order even to get it to a useful state. Then the red methodologies are still being defined, and there are many different techniques. How can a developing world country get access to the latest methodologies? Once they do, how do they actually run those